So yesterday, a friend of mine, MisterMarvelous, alerted me that there was a leak on 4chan of Warhammer 3 content, and if you have any experiences with leaks in the past, you don't really take what's posted on 4chan at face value. But there were a couple of images and a large amount of text attached. This post was quite, it was almost immediately deleted, and apparently very thoroughly. Some of the text survives as second-hand accounts on Reddit, and the two images kind of sketched me out because the UI just looks sort of weird. So I didn't really take it extremely seriously, but among the things in this leak were purported new units, the appearance of the Tsarina in-game. Come today, the Warhammer 3 gameplay teaser is released, and it looks like almost the exact same map. So it appears we have a literal tower defense mode coming to Warhammer 3, at least if this correlates. I do want to stress that even if this is somehow some sort of legit leaked early access version of the game, everything involved would be subject to change, the models, the UI, but it still does give us a glimpse into what this game's design could be like. I'm not sure how many people have actually correlated the trailer with the leak. I mean, I guess I could bring up a few of the things that seem to align. The Tsarina that is shown in the leak seems exactly the same as the one in the trailer, and furthermore, the text dump talks about an elemental bear unit, and Drew, rewind that footage. It's a Berenstein bear. It's a polar bear. Now, Kislev as a faction, I believe it had bear riders. It's not exactly the easiest task to track down every single Warhammer unit that's been written in the RPG and in the army books. Kislev has had playable units a couple of times, but usually nothing too substantial. And I don't really recall an ice elemental bear. From what I remember, there were bear riders, but even then, I'm not 100% sure, so look it up and sue me. There's also apparently a skull cannon in the trailer. I'm going to read the Reddit threads in full, but I'm going to save that for the end because I imagine that's pretty boring and probably done by now.
Run them through the system, analyze the pictures, let's go, let's do it!
If the text is to be believed, this is the Assault on the Brass Citadel battle. This is known in-game as the Assault on the Brass Citadel battle. So these pictures, first off you have the Tsarina ice skating around, which apparently is some sort of animation she randomly does, just looking all mystical and icy, surrounded by some very, very blurry Kislevian warriors. So, you know, it's pretty neat, I guess. The second image is purported to be the UI, and I don't know, to me it kind of looked really fake or like a mobile game to me, because it does look like the Warhammer 2 UI, but there's just something very odd about the time controls in the top right, and the magical hourglass, I guess, in the bottom right. And of course, you can't forget the fact that there's a building location. There's some little tower defense buildings you can make over there. This almost looks like an alternate take on the siege modes that exist in Warhammer 2. There are Streltsy, a type of musketeer based on Strelets, but all I see in this picture are bow units, and some generic Kislevian sword infantry. None of the Tsarina's spells are visible here, but I guess it's not like she's selected, so that sort of makes sense. That huge dice counter in the top, like I couldn't even guess. And of course, in the top left, you have the demonic wave. Oh boy, it's some survival mechanics up in here. This is great. But if this image is actually real, you actually get a close-up of the Tsarina's in-game face. One of the transcripts of the 4chan leak called Tsarina a cutie, and, you know, I mean, that's still up for debate, but I gotta say, I couldn't agree more. So yeah, in terms of general UI design, kind of like Warhammer 2's design, but extremely different in some specific areas. Only the HUD elements in the center of the top, the time controls in the top right, and the magic counter. The new magic mana counter, I guess, as well as some icons in the cursor looking rather different. Yet again, this could be just because it's some sort of beta. These could be placeholder graphics as well, though. At first I was kind of worried these were some sort of mod Kislev units or like Forgotten Realms that had been adapted to look like Warhammer 3 models, but this pretty much looks exactly how it's presented in the trailer, but with the UI. Perhaps for good reason, as that would spoil this survival mode, this weird challenge mode. The leaker compared it to the Dark Crusade capital battles, and I'm really seeing what they mean here. It sort of looks more like a base builder. The leaker's description of what appears to be ice magic also aligns with what's in the trailer, but I'm not really gonna give that to them because it doesn't really seem like something that someone couldn't guess. If these are legit, it does give us some insight into the unit cards, which look mostly the same, but apparently the Kislevian swordsman unit, which I would not know the name to, and bow Streltsy? I don't know. Kislev hunters? Who knows? That ends up being pretty cool. This could all be really pointless as the gameplay reveal is scheduled for the 13th of May and it could show off all these features anyways with no changes, but definitely a bit more to the story than just the trailer dropping. at least as far as I see it. It seems that this leak at least had some level of validity to it. I also can't guarantee that this will be rendered pointless within a week of the time this video was recorded. I am now going to read the compiled information from the Reddit by user HoloNerox. I'm also going to link to this in the description. The battle was called Assault on the Brass Citadel, and the map is said Citadel. It was a battle with Kislev versus Khorne demons. It was apparently part of the campaign, but the formula was a bit different than in other Total War titles. Basically, you had to go through the map with your forces and secure capture points while being assaulted by waves upon waves of chaos. Kinda reminds me of some historical battles from other games, like Teutoburg and Rome 2, but with actual mission objectives. Battle was wild AF. By the time my first units got to the last objective, I was still skirmishing near the first one. I didn't play all of Warhammer 1 and 2, so not sure how these work, but the mission reminded me of Dawn of War for some reason, with the map being structured very similarly. It was more of a siege since each of the capture points was also part of a bigger fortress, which you could reinforce by spending supplies/points. You could also use them to buy new units mid-battle, upgrade units you already had, and build shit like towers, etc. They literally used the word tower defense in the PR. Also, enemies were coming in waves, with the clock showing you how much time you have until the next attack. In general, it's supposed to be something entirely new for boss battles in the campaign. There wasn't an LL for chaos, just a boss at the end, which I think was a random bloodthirster? Similar to the one from the trailer, called Exalted Greater Champion. For Kislev, it was Katarina. She's literally surfing on ice she's creating like Iceman from X-Men, and she cute. There is also lower level lord, Vitaly Slekta, or something like that. A guy riding big bear with tusks and horn. Bear Cav is OP as and they have a lot more type of bears in general, including big one that pukes ice. Katarina has thick accent. The people's rule. In regards to questions on if the survival mode was a MOBA, keep in mind some of these responses are to other questions in the thread. None of these have anything to do with the MOBA genre though. It's pretty good. By buildings I meant defensive structures like barricades, so no base build. Also keep in mind that it's not a competitive mode. It's for a campaign. You're the one taking the victory points and the progression is rather linear because of how map is constructed. So it's not like you'll be running around the map constantly retaking. Oh, and one more thing I never mentioned. Most enemy units are nerfed in this mode. There's also much more of them so that you can have this survival feel to the gameplay without getting obliterated right away. Because enemies are endless. Let me just say that survival battles still play like Total War battles, just far longer and micro-intense. I didn't see how they interact with the campaign, but I doubt you end them with your spawned units still in your army. Reminded me of stuff like capital battles in Dawn of War Dark Crusade, to be honest. Responding to ice skating animations. She was randomly using it while running, it's not permanent. On whether or not there were dueling animations, I think there were some animations when my elemental bear fought a bloodthirster. But then again, A wasn't paying close attention to individual animations as my time was limited. I may know more when CA sends me my footage. I definitely didn't get any custom death animation as the demon was killed by ranged attack. Oh, and Khornates did use some ranged units, though it was arty. Skull cannon. In regards to difficulty of the mission, definitely micro-intensive. I had to use my lighter units to redirect chunks of each waves of enemies, because some of my defenses might have crumbled if I took all of the enemies on at once. This was also rather long, so I had some issues to fix from time to time, though by the end my army was pretty OP and I managed the Bloodthirster fairly well. Keep in mind that enemy units are constantly spawning in waves and are weaker than normal, so your focus is on not getting swarmed rather than breaking the enemy, like you would in a normal battle. I also suspect it'll be much more tricky and very hard. On performance and graphics, frame drops mostly when new waves are spawned, though not much. Battle map looks phenomenal, but that's kind of the standard at this point on whether Kislev has rifle units. Streltsy is the main unit, I think. They have rifles. There's a separate unit with bows. The OP edits and adds in some things he missed from archive threads. As for magic, it focuses on slowing down enemies and buffing your own. Crystal Sanctuary, better damage resistance, but unit can't move. Frostblade, buff for attack and AP. Ice Maiden's Kiss, Frosty Breath that slows enemies and damages them. Death Frost, damage over time. Ice Sheet, spread and charge reduction. Heart of Winter, evolving AoE that does more damage with each stage. On the Khorne unit. For Khorne, it was mostly Bloodletters, Skull Crushers, Bloodthirster, a single one, Skull Cannons, these warriors that leaked, the usual, nothing really eye-catching. On Cathay, no mention. In general, it was only a showcase of a new battle, supposedly. Typical Laowai. So yeah, that was quite the mouthful, but keep in mind this is secondhand information from a now deleted thread, so this is a big old game of telephone. Take all this with a grain of salt, but if you're interested, these are some insights into the potential future of the game. I think it's really odd that they're going to go for this weird tower defense survival mode. I don't really like how it's a departure from the Total War style, but I can also see why some people would really enjoy it. I think people who do challenge runs of Warhammer 2 would very much enjoy this. I also find it interesting how much Kislev seems to sort of be the protagonist in this early promotional material. At least of May of this year, they're kind of featured front and center, which is cool. It's almost like turning this faction into a protagonist of sorts, at least for now. I really wonder if they'll be the tutorial faction. Anyways, if you've gotten to this point, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make more Warhammer content. Peace.